Hi, it's me, Jennifer from Little Metal Foxes, and I've got a treat for you. I've been making Mitsuro wax. I call it my golden Kitsune wax, and this is made with beeswax from local Washington apiaries and tree resin that is West Coast pine tree resin that smells like butterscotch and vanilla. It's heaven. So when you're working with the Kitsune wax, you can fold it, bend it, warm it up in your hands, or warm it up in a little, like on a coffee warmer, and it creates a really wonderful taffy-like texture. It's also called taffy wax when you start folding and stretching it. If it gets a little too warm and sticky, have a bowl of cool water nearby, and that does a great job of cooling down your hands and the wax, and then continue pulling and folding and kneading it until you get the shape that you like. I like to use different mandrel shapes to wrap it around, to shape it around, and I've got a few really good tools that are like a silicone tool or wooden tools, whatever you have around your studio, to be able to sort of poke it, shape it, and that way you don't necessarily get fingerprints in it from smushing it. One of the things that you might notice about the wax is that it has some color variations, and there may be a few organic inclusions in it. We're working with organic materials, so you're going to see some little variations in it. If you see something like some organic inclusions from the resins or the beeswax, it's fine. It's not going to affect the outcome of your casting. If you find that you're getting little resin crystallization, you may want to remelt the wax and pour it into something like a little silicone mold or onto some parchment paper and let it set up on its own. Sometimes when it gets cold, those two materials can kind of separate a little bit. So just keep kneading it and you can work those little crystallizations out. But what you want to do is build up that sinewy texture. As you do that, it takes a lot of bending and folding and kneading, which is part of the fun, I think, of working with Mitsuro and with the Kitsune wax. So experiment with it and pull and play. A couple of things that you'll notice about it too is that it will soften a little bit if it gets warm. So try and keep it cool. I usually work with a bowl of cool water nearby so that I can dip the wax into it as I'm working. And I may work on more than one piece at a time. So that way, if one gets a little too warm, I can put it in the water and work on another piece for a little bit and then switch them out as I'm working. When I take this to my caster, I always let them know, or if I'm casting it myself, I know that it's a softer wax and to be a little bit gentle with the investing process. So it's good to know that if the wax is a little too cold, it can be a little brittle. And if it's too warm, it can be a little soft. So if you're working with a caster, let them know that. I usually transport these waxes if I'm teaching or if I'm taking it to a caster in a watertight container with some water in it. This does two things. It keeps the wax cool while you're transporting it, and it keeps it dust-free and keeps it from breaking. Floating it in the water does a great job of just letting it sort of float along, but it keeps the wax clean at the same time. Once I get my waxes ready to sprue, I will make sure that I'm putting it in an area that's on an edge or on the inside where it's not going to disrupt that texture that I've worked so hard to achieve. If I'm shipping this, I would definitely recommend either putting it like inside one bag, inside another jewelry bag where it's airtight, where you're not going to be crushing it. And if it's a little hot where you are, you might want to put in something like a little cold pack just to make sure that, you know, the waxes don't get molten on the way to your next location. Otherwise, it is the ingredients are food safe. It's fun to work with. It can be worked down to a thickness of about 0.5 millimeter without any problem. And it is the same specific gravity as your other casting waxes. So if you have other casting waxes that you're working with, they're going to weigh out the same. You can also incorporate other casting waxes or sheet wax or any of your lost wax casting waxes into your designs with this Kitsune. It's pretty easy to incorporate things like little stone settings, have like a sheet wax substrate or a carving wax on the bottom and adding the Kitsune details to it. If you've got any little bits of the Kitsune left over, again, save the little scraps and recycle them by melting them down. The other thing that's good to know about it is that it's just fun to work with. So have fun. If you are at all a little nervous about it, just, you know, kind of take off. It's really warm in my studio today, so it bends really easily, so I can warm it up in my hands really easily. Yeah, get that texture going. Yeah, don't be afraid to play with it. Yeah, there we go. And you can see that texture start to really develop just in a few pulls. And like I said, it's really warm in my studio today, so I can really kind of get that taffy texture pretty quick. There we go. So there's that really lovely striation that you can get, right? Lovely. If you find that it's snapping and breaking, it may be a little cool. So just warm it up in your hands, or you can use, if your studio is a little chilly or you've just got a cold nature to your hands, then use something like a little tea light or an alcohol lamp to be able to warm up your waxes. You can work with little silicone tools or little jewelry tools around your studio. Any of those will work fine. If I'm spruing this up, I will usually work with a nice hot pointy tool to add my sprues with a little bit of sticky wax. I'll put the sticky wax on the sprue and then add it to the Mitsuro blend wax. So it doesn't melt this wax. It has a very low melting temperature. The melting temperature of this wax is about just under 200 degrees. So if you're working with a wax that has a higher melting point, it's important to know. But, ooh, look at that. Love it. All right. If you have any questions, let us know if I've missed anything or forgotten anything. And you can always contact Chris at Lion Punch Forge or me at Little Metal Foxes. Thanks so much. Bye. It's really hard to stop playing with this when you're playing with it. It's like, so yummy. Yum. It smells so good. So yeah, work on those textures. Build it all up. What?